It was reported that President Biden's campaign ended its January fundraising with $56 million in the bank. Now, if he can only remember his ATM code.
That's it. That's as good as it gets. Well, actually, it's not quite as good as it gets with Joe Biden critiques in the alleged world of comedy this weekend. There were a couple of moments. The best one, unfortunately, was out of Italy. The Italian version of Saturday Night Live did a better job of skewering the President of the United States than our own Saturday Night Live because they're just another organ in the body politic. The Democrat Party's propaganda apparatus. Well, happy Monday to you and welcome. Quite a weekend, a whole lot of moving parts. We had CPAC going on just outside of Washington, D.C. at National Harbor, down the mighty Potomac River in Maryland. And my best girl and I were there on Saturday for the President Trump speech in the big room, and had some real good seats, actually, thanks to Mercedes Schlapp and Matthew Schlapp. Matt and Mercedes Schlapp, they're married and everything. And I work with Mercedes Schlapp and with Matt quite frequently at Newsmax and Newsmax TV. And we enjoyed President Trump's speech very much, got some quick reviews as soon as he wrapped up. Not everyone was thrilled with his speech, but it was funny. It was a great classic Donald Trump stand-up comedy routine of a speech at CPAC. And being at CPAC was a lot of fun, and saw a lot of great people there, as you might imagine. Some of my neighbors living in my building are right there sitting behind us. Mark Levin right there. All kinds of great people. We were seated next to Vivek Ramaswamy, sitting in the seat next to us. Sort of fun. And all kinds of recognizable conservatives, people on the side of America. So no Democrats, except the news media. A lot of news media there. And they reported falsely. A lot of media people reported falsely, which they so often do, that President Trump called his own wife Mercedes because they're so ignorant and they don't follow the news. And they're watching a CPAC event and they don't know about Mercedes Schlapp and Matt Schlapp being the head of CPAC and pulling together the big conference every year. Our news media is, they're intellectually lazy, they're journalistically lazy. And they're corrupt. Why are they corrupt? Because they're Democrats. They're not self-immolating yet. But hold your breath, and one of them just might. And in fact, I watched the video this morning of the man self-immolating at the Israeli embassy, and it's Michael Piercy said, that's a little hard to watch. It's a little hard to watch, isn't it? Gasping, and he's yelling about free Palestine, free Palestine. And he doesn't look like a jihadi. I don't think they've released his name yet, but we've got our ear to the ground on that. He doesn't appear to be a jihadi. He looks like a guy from the Midwest, and he's, honestly, he's dead now. He died. We just learned this morning that he died. But he, that'll happen when you self-immolate with flammable liquids and then ignite yourself because, that's not, and that's, we also agreed this morning, Michael and I, that's not a good way to commit suicide. Of all the ways of commit, and there are many, that I wouldn't choose that one. That's not one that I wouldn't recommend that at all. And watching the video, the American media is not publishing it because, they're a little squeamish. But what is it, India Today that had it? I think it was a publication out of India that posted the video of the self-immolation. Yes, India Today. And it's not something that everyone should watch. I wouldn't recommend that everyone watch it. But this is becoming a trend with the Democrats. We had the Democrat who was very concerned about the environment self-immolate at the Supreme Court. You remember what day that was, Michael? It was Earth Day. It was on Earth Day because he didn't want people putting smoke in the air. No more smoke in the air. And then he self-immolated. Doesn't make a lot of sense. But Democrats are like that. And then we had a lady in this story, that we had this lady in Atlanta, Georgia, who self-immolated outside the Israeli consulate there, right? And then this Democrat who was in the United States Air Force, according to multiple reports, self-immolated at the Israeli embassy. And I guess he was having a bad weekend. He probably couldn't get tickets to CPAC and was very disappointed. Completely crazy. And we do have the audio. I'm not going to play it right now. It's probably a little early for that, but we do have the audio of the self-immolation, and it's something exciting radio. And not only do we have Democrats self-immolating at the Israeli embassy and the Israeli consulate in Atlanta, and then the Supreme Court on Earth Day because concerned about smoke in the air and all that stuff. But we have Democrats perpetrating suicide attacks all over America. New York City, Washington, D.C., Capitol Hill, Black Lives Matter rally in Dallas, Texas, Black Lives Matter rally in, where was the other one? It was, they got them all over the place. They commit suicide attacks. They're turning into Islamists right before our very eyes. Completely crazy. I remember, many decades ago, I think one Buddhist monk self-immolated in Vietnam, became a symbol of everything for like 20 years. Now Democrats do it on any given weekend. Pretty extraordinary stuff, got to say. So, sorry about that, but that's what the Democrats are giving us. Amazing stuff. And then there's Joe Biden, the president of the United States, who is a numbskull. His skull is numb. Amazing stuff. Biden's reliance on note cards at fundraisers worries donors. Now, it's not for press conferences or anything, but they pay $250,000 a head to be in the room with Joe Biden. Can you imagine having that much money? Having so much money that you would pay, and if you bring a date, it's $500,000. And you get a picture for the low price of $25,000. So I can imagine what you get for $250,000. What more do you want? What more is there? You get the photo. That's $25,000. And for $250,000, you should be able to spend the weekend at the house in Delaware with him or something, and he should make you flapjacks. But we got Joe Biden he's got his cue cards now that his handlers give him, and they tell him which donors to call on. So they have prearranged questions, and then Joe Biden reads off of note cards at fundraisers, because to say that he's no good on his feet would be dramatic understatement. We got that amazing stuff. Yes, we do. And there was a funny moment of the weekend because Joe Biden, a book coming out now, says that Joe Biden, he says that the key to a successful marriage is good sex. Now, I know that's not something anyone wants to have to think about for myriad reasons, but that's pretty extraordinary. Joe Biden at the age of 81 saying, and I think the other day he said he was 80, didn't he? He's forgotten how old he is now. Amazing stuff. So that popped, that story popped, if you will. Can I use that term in this context? And Joe Biden says the key to a good marriage is good sex. And I guess he doesn't have a good marriage, I think, is the conclusion we draw from that. But it created a funny moment because not everyone sat still for that. And we have this X. It used to be called Twitter, Did you know that? They're still saying that, aren't they? They're still saying it used to be called Twitter. Amazing stuff. So when Joe Biden, when that story popped, that's what he says, the Trump family was not going to sit idly by, and Donald Trump Jr. tweeted, I can't quote it exactly, his ex-post, but Donald Trump Jr., when the story broke, Biden tells White House aides the key to successful marriage is, quote, good sex, and, quote, new book claims. Donald Trump Jr. posted on X, beeping the entire country doesn't count. And it's a curse word that I can't use, but he said blanking, it's like a game show. Blanking the entire country doesn't count. See, is that good sex? I just don't know. That's completely crazy. So that's just scratching the surface on the Democrats today because they're on the loose. They're off the chain again. And Joe Biden is headed to New York City today because he's going to tape an interview for late night TV with Seth Meyers. What time is that Seth Meyers show on, Michael?
Like
Yeah, it's late. It's in the middle of the night, I think. Yeah, it's so long after Joe Biden's bedtime. There are no more reruns of Hazel on at that hour, so he's sound asleep by then with his sleep apnea machine on his face, and then he waits for his cat to walk across his face to wake him up. What's his cat called? Willow. Why is his cat called Willow? Willow is the name of his cat, and his cat wakes him up in the morning by stretching on its claws on his plugs, I think, and that's refreshing his scalp, something like that. But Joe Biden is still not awake now, I think. I think he's still not out of bed. He doesn't get to the Oval Office till about 10 a.m., then he's done by 4 p.m. This is a part-time job for Joe. Might be best for the world that he not spend any more time doing it. Yeah, but he's going to New York, going to shut down traffic, cause chaos in New York. There are going to be protests because the Jew haters are going to come out in New York City. We call them Democrats. That's what we call them. And Gavin Newsom, what a clown car suck up this boy is. He was on CNN being fluffed by Dana Bash, right? It was Dana Bash fluffing him. And a lot of fluffers at CNN and across the news media. And Gavin Newsom, the headline is, Gavin Newsom lays it on thick after Kristen Welker asks if it's responsible for Democrats to run Joe Biden. It wasn't Dana Bash. It was Kristen Welker. Let me correct it for you. And so there we go. Kristen Welker, she's not a journalist at all, is she? No, she's not. She spends most of her time in a hot tub, I think. That's amazing stuff. So, we got in the news today Alexander Smirnov, the trusted confidential FBI source. And it's kind of amazing because the news media is blaming Republicans for Alexander Smirnov, the FBI confidential source in Ukraine, who told the FBI that Joe Biden got $5 million and Hunter Biden got $5 million out of Burisma in Ukraine, the gas company. And now the Democrats are actually blaming Republicans. And when I say the Democrats, I mean the media. Their mouthpieces in the media. Yeah, why didn't when did the Republicans find out that Smirnov was a fraud? And they never fault the FBI. It's amazing stuff. We got some intelligence community news today, too, because they're not on our side. So many of them in the leadership, the entrenched permanent bureaucracy of the U.S. intelligence community, not on our side. They really tampering in our elections. You're not supposed to tamper in our elections. You're supposed to tamper in the elections of beep-hole countries. And that's it. Just amazing. The Democrats, here's the radical left-wing Atlantic magazine, like so many other corrupt magazines, because they're staffed by leftists who were raised in today's, college environment. Commies. How Democrats could disqualify Trump if the Supreme Court doesn't. That's the headline. I think that's an insurrection. I think what they're engaging in here is insurrection. And they should probably be arrested. Pre-dawn raids by the FBI with CNN camera crews in tow ought to be the way to go. Amazing stuff. And while the media is still attacking Donald Trump for calling his wife Melania Mercedes, that never happened. But that's what our news media does. They're not on the side of the truth or justice or the American way or any of that. And the RNC chair, Ronna Romney McDaniel, will be stepping down as RNC chair. And the media is naturally attacking Republicans and attacking Donald Trump and blaming him. And none of that is true. But that's our news media. Pretty amazing stuff. Yes, sir. And I love this one. I just mentioned our corrupt intelligence community. Left-wing Politico in Washington. The prospect of a second Trump presidency has the intelligence community on edge. It should, because half of you should be in a penitentiary. Half you in the leadership should be in handcuffs, wearing orange, leg shackles grabbed at airports, And stop tampering with our presidential elections. That'd be a good start. I got the Koch brothers. There was only one Koch brother, but now they keep calling them the Koch brothers. Well, involved in the political wing of the family. And A Virginia couple sailing their catamaran in Grenada, murdered by criminals down there. I spent a month on the beach, Grand Anse Beach in Grenada, where they were nabbed and hijacked and murdered by people that would vote Democrat if they came in here illegally, and the Democrats would invite them. Pretty amazing stuff. And maybe the biggest story of the weekend, Laken Riley, murdered by a Venezuelan illegal alien on college campus, University of Georgia, in Georgia. And this is, Joe Biden might as well have bludgeoned her to death himself. This is so on Joe Biden and the Democrats. Let's see if, the Washington Post, I think, has barely mentioned it. I'll wait till you hear what the Washington Post said when they barely mentioned it. Just amazing stuff. I haven't even scratched the surface. We got Democrats and LGBTQ and Brian Seltzer water, and boy, we got a lot of stuff. We're at 888-630-9625. Hey, it's Chris Plant, excited to tell you about our July 2024 Listener Sea Cruise. We'll be sailing around the British Isles, visiting Scotland and Ireland. Please join us. Visit ChrisPlantCruise.com. So much crazy, so little time. 3 hours is not enough every day to sum up the Democrat Party. Joe Biden going to New York today to do an interview with Middle of the Night TV. No one will watch unless he makes a complete idiot of himself, and then it'll be on the internet, but that's it. And the protesters are going to be out because they love genocide, of the Jews. And then they accuse you, from the Russian playbook, of committing genocide against Hamas, the terrorists. That's your Democrat Party. Then they self-immolate. Just amazing, amazing stuff. I am telling you. And our news media, honestly, where's my, I combed the Washington Post on Saturday, on Sunday, and today, and they're not reporting. They're not reporting on the young woman murdered at the University of Georgia by an illegal alien from Venezuela who was grabbed for committing crimes in New York. It was child endangerment. And they arrested him, and they said, let's let him go. And he came in with a fake wife across our border in 2022, I think September of 2022. And he was sent to New York, where he started committing crimes immediately. And the Democrats there just let him go. And then dumping his alleged wife that he used because, we want asylum. This is my wife. Oh, this is my husband. And as soon as they get here, they split up because they weren't really. Because, believe it or not, murderers are often liars, too. Yeah, it's true. So do you think the Democratic Party is maybe converting to Buddhism and becoming monks, and that's why so many of them are self-immolating now? I'm trying to figure this out, sincerely. I don't think that there's a good explanation. And where's Rashida Tlaib? Well, she's calling for all of the Muslims, and everybody else for that matter, in Michigan to just vote uncommitted in the Michigan primary tomorrow, which I think would be fun. And Gretchen Whitmer, the radical left-wing extremist governor of Michigan, she's saying, oh, no, don't do that. That's a vote for Trump, and we can't afford that. Yeah, can we afford grocery store prices to go down and gasoline prices to go down? I got gasoline yesterday. I filled my tank yesterday. I got 11 gallons. I try to keep I do like September 11th rules. When my gas tank gets to a half tank, I fill it. I try to keep at least a half tank of gas in my car, right? And I didn't quite succeed last few days, but I got 11 gallons of gas, and it was $49 for 11 gallons of gas, because Washington, D.C. and I drive a small car, but it's extremely high performance, and I get premium gasoline. That's what they tell you to do because, it's a 1966 Ferrari Daytona. No, it's not. It's nothing of the kind, actually. It's not like that at all, but that would be nice. Let me take a phone call before we get back to the news, Michael. We continue to be at 888-630-9625. Let's go to Chris calling from New Jersey. Christopher, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
How you doing, Chris? Yeah, so what I was saying is, even Fox is saying this, he's going to be forced to do something at the southern border. It's like, well, first of all, that's just doing his job. But the other part of the story that they're missing out and that Republicans really need to seize on is, at no point are they talking about fixing your problems in Chicago and New York City and all these places, which is deportation. Because we don't have ICE. We don't have CBP. It's Customs and Border Processing. There's no protection at the southern border. And what we have to do is reinforce to these inner cities that are being inundated and flooded, saying there is no hope. The best you can get is you'll get it'll make it less worse than it already is. But at no point is he offering you better.
Joe Biden. Well, this is all on Joe Biden's. Look, this murder at the University of Georgia is on Joe Biden.
Yep.
There have been murders all over the country, and the Republicans on Capitol Hill started to seize on the murder at the University of Georgia a little bit. But honestly, the Democrats would make this murdered young woman, Laken Riley, she would become a symbol of the Democrat Party. Look what they did when George Floyd was killed by a police officer while being arrested again for another felony while there was fentanyl and methamphetamine coursing through his veins, and he was assaulting the police and resisting arrest and passing counterfeit bills, and he died of cardiac failure. And the Democrats burned our country down, and I mean the senior levels of the Democrat Party were complicit in all of that, quite clearly and obviously.
Where's the FBI, right?
Sorry, go ahead.
Where's the FBI? The FBI is supposed to be looking for criminals, and instead they're looking for Christians. We have the most anti-Christian, like the Democrat Party is the Communist Party, and they are completely anti-Christian. Because they figure they're white, and they can't go after anybody not white. So that's what they are. That's all the Democrats did was change their racism from everybody else to white people. But they have to have racism because they're hate. They're the party of hate and destruction.
That's exactly right. You're exactly right. They're the party of racism. They've always been the party of racism. To the extent that the United States has a legacy of racism, it is nearly 100% on the Democrat Party. And today, you're absolutely right. Now, they're anti-Semites now, too, and pro-radical Islam. They're pro-Hamas and anti-Israel. They're anti-Benjamin Netanyahu. They're violent about being pro-Hamas. And in fact, the self-immolator yesterday was all about being pro-Hamas. Stop the genocide. I am gonna play the audio today of the guy self-immolating, and it's disturbing, but it's got to be, it's got to be made public. We have to talk about these things. And again, Chris, when in Atlanta, Georgia, in December, just a few months ago, a woman self-immolated for the same reason at the Israeli consulate in Atlanta. First of all, the news media swept it under the rug. I don't even know if we got the woman's name. I don't think we ever got the woman's name that self-immolated. I don't know if we ever got word whether she died or not because the news media swept it under the rug. But the Democrat Party has gone full Buddhist monk on us at this point, and I don't know how many Buddhist monks actually self-immolated in Vietnam during the war there. I know at least one, but the Democrat Party, I got to tell you, they're getting crazier and crazier and crazier and more violent. The crazy Democrats, man, they are nuts. And somebody's got to call them on it. The Republican Party needs to make sure that this woman's name is not forgotten, Laken Riley. Laken Riley was a young woman. And let me say this also. My best girl grew up in and around Atlanta, Georgia. She has a lot of family in and around Atlanta, Georgia. We have gone down there for Christmas many times. And my best girl's family is friendly with, and they know the family of Lake and Riley. And one of our nieces actually works with the mother of Lake and Riley, school teacher. And this is, the University of Georgia campus murder. They, now they're talking funeral plans. And if you're looking for any coverage of this in the Washington Post, you're going to be out of luck because they don't cover the news. They cover it up. And honestly, the Washington Post, they put one piece in the paper 2 or 3 days ago. And I don't even know if it was in the hard copy of the paper. It was online. And in this fake story, it wasn't really about the young woman that was murdered by an illegal alien criminal in the country illegally from Venezuela. They had a story about, this is why it's so difficult for women athletes. I'm sorry, what? What is the story that you're pretending to cover? That's completely crazy. And, nuts. A good Newsweek headline, MAGA demands death penalty for migrant arrested over killing of Laken Riley. Newsweek magazine. Now, what is it MAGA? Who is it MAGA demands? What kind of horsepucky is that from Newsweek magazine? It's pure unfiltered horsepucky. MAGA demands, first of all, we should have the death penalty for the SOB, the illegal SOB, who, again, the news media is not going to tell you. Where's the Washington Post story? Because the Washington Post story is such an embarrassment that they say that this is about women running in the woods and why it's so dangerous. Killing of nursing student out for a run underscores fears of solo female athletes. That's the Washington Post story on this. And in the story, they never say that the killer is an illegal alien in the country illegally as an alien from Venezuela, where the communist Nicolas Maduro emptied his prisons and sent them to the United States. And by the way, now Venezuela is not accepting anyone that we would deport back to Venezuela because the communist Nicolas Maduro, who is not much farther left than the Democrat Party in the United States today, he knows that he emptied his prisons and sent criminals and people from insane asylums to the United States, and that they're going to kill and steal and destroy here in the United States. And he's not taking any of them back. Isn't that amazing? And here's the radical left-wingers at Axios. How, quote, open borders, end quote, became a U.S. myth. It's a myth. The economy is great. We don't have open borders. Women aren't being murdered by illegal aliens. There aren't Venezuelan gangs marauding through New York City and Chicago, which are not in border states. Amazing stuff. And the Washington Post is so full of horsepucky that they come up with these ridiculous stories. Killing of nursing student out for a run underscores fears of solo female athletes. Just amazing stuff. And at no point this is the only story I can find in the Washington Post about the murder of this young woman by an illegal alien criminal. They don't mention that he was arrested for child endangerment in New York and then let go, knowing that he's an illegal alien because they don't cooperate with ICE, as Chris was just saying, because they're not on our side. The Washington Post writes, Carol Capps runs regularly in the forested area of the University of Georgia campus, where the body of 22-year-old nursing student was found earlier this week. They don't even want to get into the name. After she was reported missing from a morning run. Capps, 24. Now, what are they talking about? This is the only story they've done. Capps, 24, said the trails around Lake Herrick always seemed safe, but then the Democrat Party opened up the borders, and now we have open borders, and Nicolas Maduro emptied his prisons and sent all the criminals to the United States to kill and plunder. a place where she could get away from traffic and go into the woods for some mental clarity. But that sense of peace was shattered after authorities on Thursday found the body of Laken Hope Riley and arrested Athens resident Jose Antonio Ibarra, 26, on suspicion of murder. That's it. That's their description, and they go no farther. They don't tell you that he's an illegal alien from Venezuela. They don't tell you that he came into the country in September of 2022 under Joe Biden, because this is a campaign year for the Washington Post, and it will be one big lie after another. Joseph Goebbels has been named the executive editor of the Washington Post. That's kind of an amazing thing. Yeah, a sense of peace was shattered because an Athens resident, that's how they describe him, Jose Antonio Ibarra, on suspicion of murder. They wouldn't want to leap to any conclusions. He bashed her skull in and killed her. The victim and suspect did not know each other. University of Georgia Police Chief Jeff Clark called the killing a crime of opportunity. Now, they don't tell you, the Washington Post, the most insidious power the media has is the power to ignore. And these people are just liars. They just lie all the time. And this is Janie Har, H-A-R, with the Associated Press. The Washington Post didn't even do their own story. They just posted an Associated Press story. And the Associated Press doesn't tell you that he's an illegal alien, that he's here from Venezuela, that we're being flooded by gangs from Venezuela, that they're marauding through New York and Chicago and beyond. They don't tell you that he was arrested for crimes in New York and let go by the Democrats there to murder this woman, 22-year-old nursing student, and a friend of our family in Atlanta, Georgia. Amazing stuff. And here's their take on it. Riley's death has once again put into the spotlight the dangers of female runners. This is the dangers that female runners face. No, that's not what this tells us. Not even close. Previously, the 2018 death of University of Iowa student Molly Tibbetts while out jogging prompted an outpouring from other women who shared their tales of being harassed and followed. Now, wasn't Molly Tibbetts murdered by an illegal alien too? Wasn't she? I think Molly Tibbetts was murdered by an illegal alien too. But the Democrats at the Associated Press and at the Washington Post do not even bother to tell you that we're being murdered all over the place by illegal aliens. Man, oh man. I am telling you, your Democrat Party. That's your people. I saw that being discussed. Molly Tibbetts, did you look at Molly Tibbetts? Yeah, because, the problem is you got to look for it in the news reports. And as we're talking about in the Washington Post and the Associated Press, they don't report it. So you go looking for it months later, and it's hard to find because they sanitize the news on behalf of Venezuelan gangs. Our news media, aren't they amazing? Yes, they are. Hey, wow, look at that. Look at the clock already. Completely nuts. Your Democrat Party. And let me see. This is key to everything now, too, for the Democrats. You found it? Yep. Yeah, and Molly Tibbetts was murdered by an illegal alien, too.
Mexican native in the country illegally.
A Mexican native in the country illegally. And the news media sanitizes that because the most insidious power they have is the power to ignore. And if you start out corrupt and then you become a reporter or an editor, well, then you're just going to be a corrupt reporter or editor. They have contempt for the truth. Absolutely amazing. And left-wing Axios, why major cities are slashing city budgets amid immigrant crisis. Well, because the Democrat Party. And Axios tells us how open borders became a U.S. myth. No, it's not a myth. Pretty amazing stuff. All right. Gosh, and I'm only setting up the stories to talk about here. Completely crazy. French lawmakers are anti-Semites still to this day, demanding a ban on the Israeli flag and the Israeli anthem at the Paris Olympics. These are funny times we're in. When I say funny, I don't mean, the traditional humorous kind of time, but amazing stuff. 888-630-9625. Yes, Molly Tibbetts was murdered by an illegal alien named Crispin Bahena Rivera, and the Des Moines Register finally reported Rivera, then 24, was in the U.S. working illegally on a dairy farm at the time of her death. And that's okay with the Democrats. It honestly is. National Panhandler Radio reported on the story, and they referred to Rivera, the illegal alien who had murdered a nice young woman who had a brilliant and wonderful life ahead of her. The criminal got life in prison, the illegal alien that murdered Molly Tibbetts in 2018. And the NPR calls him an Iowa man. That's the only way they describe him, as an Iowa man, because they wouldn't want to say that he's an illegal alien in the country illegally, because that wouldn't serve the interests of the Democratic Party. And in serving the interests of the Democrat Party, more people will be murdered. As Joseph Stalin in the New York Times used to say, you got to break a few eggs to make an omelet. And that's the way the Democrat Party views all of this. They love death more than we love life. It is not the Democrat Party of Bill Clinton, and certainly not the Democrat Party of John F. Kennedy. John F. Kennedy would be driven out of this party, today's Democrat Party. Amazing stuff. Yeah, NPR called him a 27-year-old former farmhand. He was a former farmhand. That's your Democrat Party. That's our media. Isn't that amazing? Well, it's at least appalling, if not amazing. Also, a judge, and this is a fun one. A judge calls out the prosecution for prosecuting conservatives, but not Antifa.